Hey, what is going on, you guys? AK40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven. I hope all of you guys are having a fantastic day so far, and today I'm going to be doing a long-term owner's review of my iPhone XR or XR. I've had it for a little bit over a year, and I'm about to be trading it in for another device. Not sure exactly which one yet. I'm comparing 3 or 4 different devices, both on the Android and Apple side. Honestly, this has been a great phone for me, but nothing in life is perfect, especially in the electronics department, mobile devices, any kind of electronic merchandise, honestly, is going to have room for improvement, but it's also going to have some high features as well. So I want to give you guys my thoughts on this device after over a year of ownership. In case any of you guys are thinking about picking one of these up, they have dropped significantly in price, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alrighty guys, over here at the Stormtrooper desktop as always, and the iPhone XR is a really good phone. When it first came out, it was $200 to $250 cheaper than the iPhone XS, and about $450 cheaper than the XS Max. Now there are some differences. First of all, I like the size of this quite a bit. This lands right in between the XS, which is a little bit smaller, and then the XR is a little bit bigger, and then you have the XS Max, which is a big boy. It's a huge phone. And honestly, I do like smaller phones. I always have, and I feel like, honestly, with modern phones, with each generation, they're getting bigger and bigger. And I really don't want something like the Note or anything like that. I actually did have a Note for a while. It was the generation, I think it was Note 4 or 5 or something. One of those. It had the stylus pen. Really cool phone, but it was just absolutely huge. Wasn't very comfortable in the pocket, and it was massive. Honestly, I do like a relatively compact phone like this. Now, some of the differences between this and the XS, which this gets compared to a whole lot. Now, first of all, this does have an LED screen, not the OLED, and it can only go up to 1080p, not 1440. So the display is significantly less impressive when you look at the numbers, and especially when you look at the dots per inch or pixels per inch, which I believe was 3 or 360, which were the same exact count that was on the iPhone 4, but it was also the same as the iPhone 8 display, which really wasn't that bad. And honestly, just looking at this from a day-to-day use, especially when you have the brightness cranked up, it looks really good just being an LED display and not having the dark contrast of an OLED screen. And honestly, I don't really do any major gaming or movie watching or anything for my phone. My phone's primarily just for browsing applications, checking my email when I'm on the go. Occasionally, if I'm stuck somewhere, I might play a mobile game or something like that. But because I don't do a lot of like sitting there watching Netflix and YouTube on my phone, it never really bothered me. And I think the display actually looks really good. It gets very bright. You can see it very well out in the sun, which is very important to me. I hate on older phones. I used to have to squint and cover my head in order to see my screen. I've never had any issues with this phone. Durability is very good on these, and I think that's primarily because they are using, instead of aluminum on the sides, this is actually a plastic, which you think would be weaker, but it's actually less susceptible to scratches. Unfortunately, they're not able to color match the side trim to the glass back plate, like on the XS. That's why you see the silver and then white. They can't color match because this is plastic, and that is a glass back. For you mobile vloggers, you can do all these options here. You can go up to 4K at 60 frames per second. However, that takes up a ton of memory, also shreds your battery. I just do 1080p at 60 frames generally, but I don't really do a whole lot of vlogging for my phone because I have, well, this camera here that's actually recording this video. But you know, when you're out and about and some crazy event happens, you might want to fire up a vlog or something, you're able to do that. The camera does look very, very good, in my opinion, and it has a whole slew of options with the software. And battery life is very good on this phone, which is great because the milliamp hours, I believe it's 27 something, 2700 something, which is less than the XS Max. However, because it's an LED screen and not the OLED screen, and it's running the same processor, it's pushing less pixels from the display, so it actually requires a lot less juice to drive. The onboard speakers are okay. They're downward firing, nothing too crazy. You have your lightning cable here, which charges pretty quickly and battery life is good, like I mentioned. However, I do notice when my phone dies all the way and I have to plug it in, it takes a while for it to get enough battery to even turn back on, but that's not a huge issue. I guess just don't let your phone die or whatever. The front-facing camera isn't as impressive nearly as the back-facing camera, but I mean, I guess that's pretty common. There's bigger bezels around the outside of the display than the XS, which does suck. That honestly does bother me a little bit. There is a pretty damn big bezel around the outside of the screen there. I don't know the exact millimeters that they shaved it down for the XS for that OLED display, but that does get a little bit, when you're using it, you know, daily, you forget about it. But when like you hold like a XS or like a newer phone that has like virtually no bezels, it's all screen, and then you look at this, you're like, oh yeah, yep. There's huge bezels on it. I'm not a huge fan of the Apple interface. I think that's one of the reasons I'm switching back to Android. I just feel like it's not really, it's almost too user-friendly. You can't do a lot of customization with it, and if you want to, you have to jailbreak either tethered or non-tethered, you know, soft hack with something like Cydia, which kind of sucks because with the current software, because I update this constantly or whatever, because it's a 10R, they don't have a lot of jailbreaks for it. If you have a 10 or a XS Max, I think there's hacks out for it, but the 10R, for some reason, the aftermarket support's not great. So if you do want to get one of these to jailbreak and unlock all those hidden gems, those features, just don't really expect to be able to do that. Also with the display, there is no 3D motion or 3D touch, which is basically where, depending on how hard you press on the screen, you can kind of highlight apps just by lightly touching them and then click down and it'll open them, which isn't a huge deal. It's kind of a, I'm not going to say gimmicky feature, but you can live without it. It's not a necessity at all. Kind of cool to have, but if you don't have it, you really don't miss it. I do like the looks of this phone overall. I got it in white, and that's one of the cool things about the 10R versus the XS or XS Max. They are the only one that came with several colors on the screen here. They had the red, the yellow, which is cool that they did all those vibrant colors. It's kind of, you know, lets you personalize the look of it a little bit instead of having to add a colored case or a like a skin on the back, like a decal. So that's pretty cool. With the lesser LED display though, you do still get tap to wake, which is kind of cool, and you do also still get True Tone. I don't use True Tone. To me, I think it kind of muddles the natural color dynamics, and it doesn't really give you the full like RGB spectrum that you should be seeing, if that makes any sense. It doesn't seem like organic color that you should be seeing naturally. It seems like it kind of artificially pumps in some, it tweaks your visual settings, and I don't really think it adds to the content at all. So you do have 1 GB less of RAM in here versus the XS and XS Max. You have 3 gigs, vice 4. However, you don't really notice that because Apple already has really good RAM management. It really minimizes background applications and stuff like that, so you never really get bogged down, even if you have a ton of applications open in the background. Although I do recommend just going through and, you know, closing out the applications that you're not using. But all in all, not really a big issue there with the RAM, which isn't super impressive when you look at the strict numbers. 3 GB really isn't that much. But because you have that A11 Bionic processor in there, everything seems very fast and snappy. Launching applications is very quick, looking up web pages, even gaming on this. I mean, whenever I do game on this, I just play like Subway Surfers, I might play Fortnite Mobile a little bit here and there, and it looks really good actually for being what it is, a 1080p LED display. This phone weighs in at 194 grams, so it's a little bit hefty, but definitely not as much as some of the larger phones. It does have a 6.1-inch display, and the resolution for that is actually a little bit less than 1080p. It's 1792 by 828. But honestly, I mean, that's pretty much like 1080p. It comes in 64, 128, and 256 gigabyte versions, increasing in price. Obviously, this is a 64 gigabyte model here, and that does really suck that you don't have expandable storage like the Androids. because you can fill that up really quickly if you're storing a lot of movies and stuff like that. Like when I was deployed, I had a shitload of movies stashed on my phone. We'd airdrop each other movies so we could watch them in our racks and stuff like that. And that fills up really quickly. So the camera on the back is a 12 megapixel camera, and it does look really good. You are just getting the one camera, unlike the 10S and 10S Max that has the telescopic lens on there. But a lot of times in low light situations, that actually gets deactivated anyway, and they just go off the primary sensor in the main camera anyway. So a lot of 10S and 10S Max users don't even know that half the time their telescopic lens isn't even doing anything. So with that camera, there is no portrait shots of objects. You can get portrait shots of face very accurately. The software will recognize the face and then automatically blur the background just with the software, no dual lens trickery or anything like that. But when you're doing it with something like an object, like this vape or something like that, it doesn't really process it as a face. It can't recognize it, so you can't do that, which is kind of unfortunate if you like to take a lot of photography of items. So all in all, this has been a really good phone for me. I've actually enjoyed owning it. Yes, I usually do have a case on it, just for review purposes. I obviously took the case off so you can get the exact, idea of the size and the looks of the phone, the cosmetics. But it's been a pretty good phone for me. I don't dislike the phone itself or iPhone. I just personally prefer the interface of the Android, the customizability, not to mention, I just said earlier, don't really pay too much attention to the specs, to the numbers, but number-wise, a lot of the current Android phones have some pretty impressive gigs of RAM and stuff like that, which since Androids do not have as good RAM management as Apple, you definitely want the additional RAM, especially if you're going to be running like games and stuff like that, and you're prone to being someone who forgets that you have a lot of applications running in the background which are leeching off your RAM and your battery life, obviously. But all in all, good phone. I can highly recommend it. If somebody's actually looking at picking up one of these, I would say go for it. I would say do your research, look at a couple other phones, but you won't be disappointed. It's not a bad phone, and it has no major downsides, honestly. Screen looks good, camera works good, the voice quality through the actual microphone and speaker when you're on phone calls is crisp and clear, and battery life's really good. I think cosmetically it looks cool, especially if you get a nice flashy color like red or the white. It's really nice. Even the gloss black looks good though, honestly. I did wish it had that nice aluminum sides, but it is what it is. Alright guys, let me know in the comment section below if you have a 10R, if it's been good for you, if it's been a real sack of poop, and let me know your opinions as to what phone I should get for my next phone, Apple or Android. Really don't care, don't have an affinity. It's like Xbox and PlayStation. If it's good, I'll check it out. Alright guys, peace.